where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down.
All right, I got my fittings all taken care of for both of these rear bags. Easy enough, and then just trying to figure out where I want to run my airlines. So I'm going to come across from the driver's side bag through the frame onto this side, and then come from there and loop in to, I think, tee off here. So I'll connect this point to this bag with a short run, or maybe a run to the frame, and I'll use a cable clamp to secure it. And then from the other bag into the side here, and then continue the run all the way down the frame rail back to the controller. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that. I don't think I'm gonna finish this tonight, but oh well. All right, easy as that. Guess it looks like a good amount of slack to me. I don't want anything too tight. I want it tidy, but just a little bit extra. Let's see if I can get a clean cut just using my Leatherman on this line. That's why I want just a little bit extra, just in case the connections leak, so I can cut a piece off and give it another go. Not a great cut. Not the worst either. I don't know. All right, I guess both rear bags are connected. So now we'll run back over to the other side of the truck and plumb in from the T all along the frame rail and figure out where we want to tie in to get into the cab to get to the controller. All right, so now we're gonna go from this bag to the T over here. Okay. All right, I don't mind that. All right, now the long run from the other side of this T all the way to the front, and then we've got some thinking to do. Yeah, like I said, need to figure out where we want to run into the cab, and then tie the two front bags together and run those to the cab to the controller as well. Then it's all electrical from there.
There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running.
All right, so I went ahead and committed to this spot for the switches. Seemed like the best. I had to drill one extra hole, but I mean, I literally just cut out huge holes in the box, so not the end of the world. So then I need to clean this up a ton, but I ripped up some of the old insulation, this nasty crap. It was all oily and pretty gross from the floor. I'm trying to figure out where to drill holes to run the airlines through. Looks like right underneath this heater core, tucked up under there, I should be able to drill. Gets to be 3 holes, one for the front bags to come through, one for the rear bags, and then one from the air supply from the tank to the switches. And those should tuck nicely up under here and plumb right into the back. So I'm pleased with that, but I'm not sure if you noticed yet, but look what I found when I tore this up. This is where the body mount bolts through the floor, and the washer is completely busted up, which is not good, and it's not even hand tight. So that's a problem that I'm gonna have to go ahead and fix. Glad I ripped that up off the floor and checked that out. It's kind of scary. And I know on the driver's side that that one's pretty rusted out in the floor, so I'm gonna have to fix that too eventually. Probably drill out a larger diameter hole where the rust was, and I guess once I get my plasma table, I can actually just cut out a piece and weld that in. But yeah, old truck stuff. I'm just gonna take another minute to look and find the places where I want to drill the holes for my grommets, and then I should be able to do a rough cut on the line I've already kind of drug along the frame rail, just to make sure I have enough. I guess it'd probably be smart to go ahead and secure that line along the frame rail with cable clamps, and then once I get up into this area, I'll just make sure I give myself more than enough slack to run through that floorboard and tie in, and from there I'll just cut off what I don't need. All right, so now I've got the rear bags tied together and running all the way down the frame rail. And up in through a grommet into the cab. And it looks like we have more than plenty extra. Just about perfect for what I was looking for. Not too much waste, but not even close to being in danger of not having enough. So that'll be easy enough to finish the plumbing for the rear. Just need to figure out what length to tuck underneath the dash, and then I'm gonna have this right switch, passenger switch, be the rear. So I'll just cut it, push it in, and then we'll start on the front, which should be pretty easy, just running I guess a line and a T across the front too. Drill another hole for a grommet in the cab here and plumb that in, and then just one line from the air tank into the supply to the back of here. So another hole and a grommet. Okay, so now I ran the air supply line from the tank through another grommet, and I got all three drilled and then plumbed up into the switches. So I'm pleased with how everything's looking. Especially for me, I'd say it's a pretty clean install. So now I'm just gonna hook up both sides of the front to each other and plumb into the switches from the front. And then as far as plumbing, I'm completely done. I'll probably take a break and then knock out the electrical and we're ready. So I'm excited. Try not to be too excited so I don't do anything stupid. All right, so officially got everything plumbed in. I think it looks good. Maybe use a few zip ties here and there just to tidy up a few lines, but honestly, I'm pleased with it. So that means on to electrical, which is my weakness. I've got a diagram which I'll show you. It makes it look pretty simple, and I'm sure it is. Just want to make sure I get that right. So I'm a little bit intimidated because I always screw something up, but we'll go ahead and start the electrical. So I finished the wiring and everything works and it looks good. There's a few adjustments that I will make, like the run along the frame rail. I will bunch together the airlines and the couple wires and put that in wire loom and get some bigger cable clamps on those and just make those a little more tidy than they are right now, just so you know. Yeah, I used a diagram I found online. Obviously with my setup, I don't have a fan, so I just kind of cut that out of the equation and added a toggle switch. And I didn't record, and I really should have, but when I tested everything without the toggle switch, it worked, just, touching the positives to the battery. And as soon as I wired up the toggle switch, I got in a rush and there wasn't a diagram on the switch, and I guess I mixed up the wires. I flipped the switch and caused a big electrical fire that went all the way through the firewall and the grommets, and yeah, it was a mess, but got it put out and realized I'm an idiot and redid it. So here's what we have in the engine bay. Got my relay mounted here with some big ugly soldering because I didn't want to have to go to the store during this, COVID-19 pandemic. So I ended up soldering most of the connections to the relay, but it's solid, but it's not the prettiest thing in the world, unfortunately. But not a difficult thing to change in the future. And for the constant power, have that fused in line, and then have a wire running back. I guess we'll go ahead and take a look here. So I've got the wires ran all along the frame rail, as you can see. Like I said, I'm gonna tidy that up and use some wire loom and new cable clamps to make that look a little better. And here at the compressor, just have the ground right to the frame. Then you've got a power going up to the relay, which you can see the diagram here. And then we need to come back to the tank here. So you can see I plumbed in the pressure switch, which turns on the compressor at 165 pounds and shuts it off at 200 pounds. And right here, I will be adding a safety relief valve that will blow at 200 PSI. I'm not sure how that's actually going to work with that pressure switch now that I think about it, because if it shuts off at 200, but the pressure relief valve will go off at 200, is it going to pop off and then turn the compressor on, then pop off, then turn the compressor on? So I'm going to have to look into that. I didn't really think about that too much until I got under here right now. That's one positive about making these videos. So anyway, we'll go ahead and take a look at the switches and wiring inside of the cab. Yeah, I also removed the seat covers that have been on this thing. There's 2 layers of seat covers. Obviously it needs to be reupholstered, but the old ones were disgusting and dusty. And it's also cool just to see what that stock seat looked like. See, I don't know when, but I definitely want to get that reupholstered. So I'd pull that out and get this thing all cleaned up. See, I'm pretty pleased with that install. There is a few adjustments I'd like to make. I'll have to do some maybe bending and cutting with this little tab I made for my switch. It's, the lines aren't perfect, and there's a little bend here that needs to be adjusted, and then this gap kind of bothers me. The reason that that's there to begin with is I did not foresee the ashtray getting in the way of the back of the switch, because I drilled a hole right up here. But when I put the switch directly up in there, it conflicts with this ashtray, which was annoying because I drilled a decent sized hole. So instead I utilized it to bolt this bracket I made in here, and it works. It's not terrible, but the truck deserves better. So I will figure out how to make that look a little more straight and probably paint it black to match. But the main thing is everything's wired in, everything's solid, nothing's extremely sloppy. So I'm pleased with it. Also, a point to be made, obviously last time when I plumbed everything in, I cut all of that DOT 1/4 inch line just with my Leatherman. And obviously the cuts weren't perfect. They weren't haggard and too terrible. Like, the cuts weren't too bad, but obviously you should use, a special hose cutting tool or line cutting tool for it. But I don't have any leaks, which is great. This is the first time I've actually worked with these push fittings, and it seems almost too good and too easy to be true, but they work pretty well even with imperfect cuts. So that's pretty cool. What is next? I guess I'll go ahead and show you guys a video of it outside of the garage and show you the full height it goes, and then lay it out as low as it goes. Damn it. So I'm sure you noticed something. The front end has like no range of motion. It literally only lifts up a couple inches, just enough to get that transmission cross member off the ground, which is the lowest point. And yeah, the bags that came with this kit for the Crown Vic front end are very small. So I did order some Airlift 2500 series bags for the front to match the rear. And with this Crown Vic front end being so wide and not a narrowed one, being this low, I can't even turn without hitting the fenders. So it's really not drivable right now, which sucks. I'm still happy about the kit. It was worth the money just for the brackets. Got a lot done. Just need the final touches, tidy things up, change out those bags, and then wait and decide if we're gonna get those Detroit steel wheels, which seems like we'll definitely have to do some fender rolling and or get those Fat Man Fab narrowed control arms. So yeah, that's all I got for now. So that'll be it for the F100 for a little while anyway. So I appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe if you like this content. So we've got plenty more content coming up, a lot of different cool stuff.
Hope they won't shoot me down soon.